step number one to paying off debt, step number one is you have to have somewhere else to go rather than your credit card, right? So we've been taught, and I'm not going to bash the banks because that's just the way it is, but we've been taught from the bank that when you go into the bank, they're no longer interested in you necessarily saving money so that in case there's an emergency, you've got some money in savings. The advice we get from most banks is hey, come on in, we'll open a line of credit just in case there's an emergency, and here's some credit. Banks now have changed from what we used to call savings to now selling money. They're selling credit all the time. And that's just the environment we're in. Again, I'm not a bank basher. My sister is a banker, so I get it. I'm in the financial industry. But the reality is that we are now programmed for the place where we thought we could go to learn about money, which is a bank, which is not the place where we learn about money. It's actually the place where we find that we can spend way more money than we have, right? And so I'm going to give you a little example of that. I'm a mortgage broker, so I get to look at a lot of people's how much can you afford when you buy this house versus how much you can qualify for. And so when a bank, Rebecca and I, we have 5 kids, 2 dogs, 3 vehicles. Well, one of them's kind of off the road, on the road, right? We have, and so what we qualify for at a bank, let's just say that our income is the same as your income out there. And so we say, okay, if I make $75,000 a year, but we have 5 children, 2 dogs, 2.5 vehicles, and you have no children and maybe no vehicle, maybe you're renting, we go into a bank and we guess we could qualify for the same mortgage, the same home purchase. Well, that doesn't really make sense because I know that we spend a whole lot more money than you would, but we qualify for the same house. How does that happen? And that's actually how, in a lot of people, when we are talking about mortgages and when we're doing mortgages, we always talk about what we can afford and what you can qualify for. And those two numbers are generally not the same. So today, we want to just talk about how do we build this debt snowball? We're going to use our $300. And so we've saved up, we've consistently been able to put that money away, and we've done it through automation, we've done it through savings, we've become financially aware. And over a couple months, we've been able to save $300 a month. So let's say for 3 months, we've been saving $300. And then we have an emergency cushion of $900. Now, again, we're a big family. We have 3 cars. What's the biggest emergency that I'm going to have? Well, in our family, I think we need an emergency cushion closer to the $2,000 range because that's what I can, okay, the car breaks down, the dog goes to go to the vet. There's all kinds of things that have potential for emergency. And those are the things that generally end up on our credit cards or on our lines of credit. And we don't get to paying them back simply because there's not enough cash to go around. So by freeing up the $300, by sticking it in the bucket and filling up the bucket, we can now say, hey, I've got the cash. It is simply there for this one sole purpose. When there's an emergency, and it's not if there's an emergency, it's when there's an emergency, we have some money in reserve to be able to address that. So we take $300 and we're going to fill it up.
But 300 times 3 is 900, like you already said. And so sometimes you need to sell some stuff, put it on Kijiji, do what you can. Dave always jokes that we'd sell a kid. We wouldn't sell a kid. That would be really bad. Although one guy always said, you sell so much stuff and you get so determined you're going to do this thing that the kids think they're next. That was the phrase. So once you have that emergency cushion, you have to understand that we always say this. We just put it out here at every seminar. Christmas is not an emergency. Understanding what your emergency is. Christmas happens every year. And sometimes we treat our emergency cushion like our Christmas fund. But you can have a Christmas fund. You can set aside money when you start planning what you spend and spend what you plan. You know that Christmas is coming. We should set stuff aside. Some people start shopping for Christmas in July. There's a lot of that going around social media. Everyone's celebrating Christmas in July these days. So that I'm just putting that little plug in there so that you understand what an emergency is. And we sometimes say in our house, we used to say that tires for our vehicles were an emergency, but we've gone through so many tires in the last 2 years living out in the country and the potholes. We actually probably should have that discussion sometime about our tire fund, because we need to start one.
Yes, good point. The tire fund. I think we're on, in the last year, 3 rims broken and 4 tires blown just from potholes. It's like, my goodness. I should slow down maybe a little bit. Actually, they're you though, so we won't go there. So, all right. So, one of the reasons that we do the emergency cushion, and I talked about $300 for 3 months. It's easy to remember, 3. But second of all is if it takes us too long to build our emergency cushion, guess what we have? We have an emergency. And then it doesn't seem to ever get filled up. So we're putting a deadline on our emergency cushion saying we've got 3 months to build it up, and we are going to focus. We're going to see how much money can we save in 3 months. We know that we've got $300 that we've been doing. Maybe there's a bonus, maybe there's a tax return, maybe there's an extra job you can take for a couple months that just generates that solely for the purpose of emergency. And this, I think, is one of the big things that happens in your money. When you have an emergency cushion, you kind of go, oh, it just feels good that I know that the minute I have an emergency, I'm not right away going to credit. I'm not right away know that, oh, now I'm going to start paying interest. And again, paying interest is a great motivator. If we can avoid it, it's a better motivator. And so we're going to do that. So for $300 a month for 3 months, if you need a bigger emergency cushion like we would in our family at $2,000, again, if you don't have a car or you're renting, maybe you only need a $500 emergency cushion, so you can fill it up in a month or a month and a half, right? So it just depends on what your situation is, but we are only going to give ourselves 3 months. And then we get to celebrate.
And Dave likes chocolate, so anyone who is here tonight gets chocolate to celebrate.
And
I don't know. Do you eat chocolate?
We can't do any virtual chocolate or
no,
anything.
I'm not. Yeah, virtual chocolate's not going to work.
We should have talked about that before. So the real key, and it's so important while Reb's handing out the chocolate, to recognize that we need to celebrate. We need to acknowledge these wins. After 3 months, I am like the biggest fan. And if you get your emergency cushion filled up and you're like, call me, send me an email. I will celebrate with you. I might even send you a Starbucks card. Maybe, right? But the reality is we need to acknowledge this. This is part of just motivating. And so when we're going to talk about paying it off debt, this is the average Canadian family right now. Average Canadian family has somewhere around $244,000 in total debt. Basically $44,000 in consumer debt. That is, consumer debt is anything that is consumable. That's why we call it consumer debt. So that does include cars, it includes boats, it includes trailers, it includes lines of credit, it includes all of those things. Consumer debt is anything that depreciates in value as we pay for it. The mortgage is a little bit of an entity on itself in the sense that it's a debt against an asset. I'm not a big fan of the good debt versus bad debt. There is necessary debt and there is unnecessary debt. And our consumer debt is definitely in the unnecessary debt stage. In our culture here in Canada, to save up a couple $100,000 to buy a house, that would take most of us a lifetime to do. So maybe the house might be under the necessary debt category. That's the word I'm looking for. So what do you think? Is that the average Canadian debt? If you were going to pay that off, how long do you think it would take to pay off all of that? How long?
I know how long it takes.
Oh yeah, you've done this before.
Yeah. Do you have any guesses? More than 10, yeah. Some people have said 25. Someone said eternity. But that's how. If it took eternity, we wouldn't be here. There is hope because it doesn't take as long as you might think.
So, I mean, you think about just the mortgage. Most mortgages 20 to 25 years in terms of paying off your house. Add the consumer debt, and sure, 25, 30 years. So we'll go with that. We're going to see how it happens. And remember, we have $300 in the wings. We are living on less than we make by $300. That's it, that's all. You can do whatever you want, but just take that $300 off the top and move it over here so that we can address the debt. So obviously, when we're talking about the debt, we like to talk about planning our payoff. And so there are really 3 ways, okay, there's 4 ways to pay off debt. So way number 1, win the lottery. Pay off your debt if you win the lottery. 80% of people that win the lottery find themselves broke within 5 years. But anyways, there's one way to pay off your debt. Second way to pay off your debt is actually inheritance. And you wouldn't, again, I don't know the statistic, and I'm not going to quote a statistic I don't know, but there is an amazing number of people that are simply saying, yeah, I'm waiting until my inheritance comes in and then I'm going to pay off my debt. So I'm okay to live right now because, oh, it's okay. I'm not sure that's a great financial plan. I'm not sure that's a healthy financial plan, but it is one that we hear quite a bit. The third way to pay it off is what we call the debt avalanche. And what it is it basically just takes the interest rate and it categorizes or stacks your debt based on interest rate. And so, again, mathematically, and I think that makes sense for most of us here, if we pay off the highest interest rate first, we're going to pay the least amount of interest. That makes sense. So we're going to put the Home Depot on number 1, and we're going to go to the MasterCard, and then we're going to go to the Visa, and then we're going to go to the line of credit, and then we're going to go to the mortgage. And finally, it's a 0% on the car loan, and we'd have that on the car loan as our last priority. So we're prioritizing based on interest rate.
But that wouldn't work for me.
Why not?
Because how many 28%, 2,000. If I put $300, I would take a few months.
Yeah.
And I might get, knowing my personality, I would probably get discouraged. I think.
Yeah.
So then I'd give up, maybe.
You might give up. And here again, if we were to compare, let's say you started by doing it, and this is the third way, is to pay it off based on balance, where we say, you know what, if you pay off the Home Depot first, it's going to take you 7 to 8 months to pay it off before you get a victory, before you get a win.
And I want chocolate.
And you want chocolate. And we already established earlier on that money is a lot about what goes on in our hearts, and it was what goes on in our heads. It isn't necessarily about the math. And so if I would do the math, absolutely, I would pay off my debt faster here if I actually got to the end. And that's a big if, because a lot of us would actually give up somewhere along the way if we stack it based on interest rate. If we stack it based on balance, we have a greater chance of success. Because simply, we know that, hey, we've had 3 months, we've had a win, we got to celebrate, we got to eat chocolate, right? And so we're going to just order them like this, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. This is actually in your handout, so you can follow along if you want to. But the reality is you can see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We've got them in a nice order. Just did that just for you, so you wouldn't have to, cut and paste. But the reality is today's example, we're going to do it based on balance, and we call that the debt snowball. And we're taking our $300, and all of these monthly payments here, those are the minimum payments. So what we're really saying is that $880 of our $1,880 is interest costs. That's the cost that we're actually giving away in interest. The $1,000 here on the mortgage is principal and interest. So we're going to take that a little bit out. But we know that we're paying about $880 a month in interest. And these are the minimum balance, the interest-only payments. And we want to make sure that your credit cards stay static, that they actually don't increase, that the balances don't increase. So if this $30 is not enough to keep that $1,000 at $1,000, obviously, when we're doing this, We don't want to be putting stuff on our credit card. And here's another reason why shifting to cash as you do that is we just simply don't want to have the temptation of putting something on our Visa and then paying it off and saying, oh yeah, I'll pay it off when I get home, or I'll pay it off. No, just don't do it. Use the cash or use your debit card to stay away from that. So we've got $300 in the wing, and we've got 3 months that have went by, and we build our emergency cushion. Now we're going to add our $300 to the $30, and we're going to make it $330, and that's our regular monthly payment. And how many months does it take to pay off? $1,000 at $330 takes about 3 months. And so you see, 3 months for our emergency cushion, 3 months to pay off the debt, and then we have an emergency. So we're 6 months out and we have an emergency. What do we do, Rebecca, when we have an emergency?
Well, we use our emergency cushion to pay.
No, we use our Visa card.
No. No, that's part of the key that I don't think we've said clearly. This only works when you stop using credit, right? So you've got all these balances, but you're literally using cash or your debit card if you have to, but you can't, this won't work if you're still going and putting stuff on your credit card. And like the analogy with the chainsaw, you're not good with a chainsaw, you're not good with a credit card. We've got to do something. We've got to cut them up. We've got to give them away. Find accountability partners to get you serious about not doing that. But so yes, no, you go to your emergency cushion because now you don't have to go to your credit line or somebody or a neighbor or your cousin or your father to borrow money. You're relying on yourself. And once those emergencies happen, you pay for it. But in this scenario, we've thrown in 2 emergencies. So let's say somebody dies and you have to go on a trip and buy a plane ticket, or you've had a small roof leak or something like that. You need to build up the emergency cushion after you use it. So what happens then is we stop.
So let's follow the money though. Let's follow the money. So we're paying down the Visa. Oops, emergency happens over here. Okay. And we say it's one big emergency for $600 bucks, because that's what we know. It took us 2 months to refill it. We have $300 a month that we're putting towards away. So we know it was a $600 emergency. We go, okay, I stop paying the Visa card. I take my $300 that I was using for the Visa card and I fill up my emergency cushion again. And then once it's full, once it gets back up to that top part, then we go back and we start paying the Visa off, and then we use that $330 to run the Visa down. Is that right?
Does that make sense? Some people, when we teach this, don't. Oh, we get chocolate.
We get chocolate. So as we do that, of course, the Visa gets paid off, even though we're 8 months out. You saw it took us 3 months to build the emergency cushion, 2 months for us to be able to pay the Visa, or to fill up the emergency cushion again, and another 3 months for us to be able to pay the Visa off. So then we get to celebrate. Really key to celebrate. And you know what? Like Rebecca, we like to celebrate. So maybe you just pause for a month and you say, you know what, the $300, my emergency cushion is full, my Visa is paid off, and I'm okay with taking a $300. Are we okay with taking a $300
Not yet.
celebration?
Really? I don't think
Yeah,
yet.
I think I could. It's a big deal to get that first victory.
True.
And again, it just means you pause for a month. So you continue to pay the minimums on all your credit cards, your emergency cushion, and you're like, I got $300 extra this month. Let's go celebrate. Maybe you say, okay, we're going to split the difference and we go $150. Whatever this celebration is, don't go buy that big screen TV for $1,300.
Right. Don't do that. And I would say here, some of these things we forget to mention, but we don't do diets. So we're not encouraging you to have a financial diet so that, once you start paying down this debt, you can't do anything anymore. There is a little bit of healthy spending that you can still have $20 in your pocket, like he already mentioned. I remember when we first started doing financial coaching, I thought he was going to give me a budget, and it would be like, chiseled in rock, and I'd have to follow it. And it felt like it was a chain around my throat. And when he came and said, no, we're going to do a spending plan, and we're going to put that if we have the cash flow for it, sure, you can go to Chapters and get a book and buy a coffee. We'll
But we're going to plan it.
We're going to plan for it. And that way it gives you a little bit more freedom and breathing room. So even while you're paying down debt, to me, it's really important, especially in a couple and in a family, that you talk about what could help you in this process. What small things could you have to have having the $20 freedom a week, or $20 every 2 weeks? Yeah, it might sound like not a lot, but it's just enough to say, you know what? I'm not on a diet. It's not like I can't spend any money because I've got this $20 in my pocket. I think that's really important for your emotional health. Just saying.
Okay.
So
for your Starbucks health.
For my not always Starbucks.
I know, that's my problem. It's not always Starbucks. So I'm making you be the bad guy. Not really. She's not really the bad person. So we have a celebration. We take a pause and we acknowledge the fact that something has happened and it's significant. And that's the point is that, again, whatever's happening in the rest of your finances, right here in this example, all we're doing is we've carved out that $300. And we're not asking you to increase that $300. We're not asking you to change that. All of your other spending is happening over here, and you're just carving out, whether it's $300 or $200 or $100, you're just carving out that consistent amount. And we've been at it for 8 months, and we've got now $330 to spend, because we've just added the minimum payment off the Visa to our Snowball. And we add that in and we say $330. Now we're going to add that to the minimum payment, the $70 we were paying on the Home Depot card. And this is the one that, I'm motivated for. It's 28%. We've got there. We're kind of pushed through that Visa one simply because, wow, I want to pay that 28% off. And so now we've got $400 that we can apply to the Home Depot card. 5 months, Home Depot card is paid off. Bing, bang, boom. Shucks, I had an emergency. Again, what do? We pause on the Home Depot card. We use that 28% to motivate us to get that emergency cushion back up. And it might be in this case, it might have been a $700 emergency. And so maybe it's one, maybe it's two, maybe I had to, Christmas came during that period, because it probably did, and we had a setback financially, and we paused. And again, it's if we can just simply commit to pausing as we do our debt payback, as opposed to taking a full step backwards. You can take that $400 and fill up the emergency cushion, or maybe, hey, we need an extra $400 this month, or $330 this month to be able to cover Christmas, whatever it is. As you get better at planning, you'll see how that works out. So after 15 months, what do we get to do?
Celebrate.
More chocolates. And it's a big deal, right? It's a big deal. We want to pause. This is the part where Rebecca starts saying, people don't need chocolate.
I'm not giving any more chocolate.
And maybe I'll have to take some chocolate. But it's a big deal to celebrate that. So we're going to roll on again. Again, we haven't asked for you to get more than that $300, but that $300 is starting to build, because now we have the minimum payment from the Visa, the minimum payment from the Home Depot. We paid off that 28%. Dave is a happy guy. And then we're on to the MasterCard, and it's a 21% MasterCard. And we start rolling. And now we have $580 to apply to that MasterCard. And the same thing happens. We roll on. 9 months goes by. 2 months worth of emergency. We're 26 months out. And guess what? More chocolate. More celebration. And again, I'm a big fan. Now we've got $500 to spend, and maybe you have said no to something. Maybe you've stuck something on your fridge and said, when all of our credit card debt is paid off, this is what we're going to buy, or this is what we're going to do to celebrate. And so you can do that. And so we're at that point. $580, all of our credit card debt is paid off. Now we're tackling the line of credit. And there's a couple things to do with a line of credit. You'll notice that it's 12 grand. It's a pretty significant amount. And sometimes we need celebrations a little bit sooner when we're dealing with bigger numbers. So sometimes that, hey, that line of credit, the reason it got there is because we had to buy braces for the kids. And the reality was we didn't have the money to do it. So we stuck it on the line of credit, and it's been sitting there for 3 or 4 years. Okay, so if you know how much that was, then you can say, you know what, out of that 12 grand, 3,000 of it was braces for the kids. So when we get to 3,000 paid off on that line of credit, then we can have a celebration because we just paid off the kids' braces. Or maybe you just say, you know what, every $5,000, I'm going to have a celebration at every 5,000 because that's just, hey, every time I get to 5,000, it's easy for me to remember. So those are some things. Celebrating is really important. Reb and I like to celebrate. It's really important to do that. So we've got $680, and that's what we're going to use to apply to our line of credit. And again, the math is pretty simple. It takes us 17 months to go there. And in the 17 months, at this point, we've kind of been at it a couple years. So the Christmas doesn't become an emergency. So the snow tires for the car don't become an emergency because remember we freed up $300 and we've only asked you to keep that $300 chunking away at your debt. Maybe you got a raise at work. Again, a couple years have gone by. Maybe you got a raise at work. Maybe you're just better at planning. And so the emergencies become fewer. And of course, we've got more money to apply to our emergency when we have it, as we'll probably have $600 or $650 to apply there. So as we do that, one emergency, we're 44 months out and
Celebrate.
Chocolates. So we get to celebrate again. You're not handing out any more chocolate. Okay, they've had enough chocolate.
We can have more at the end.
So here we get to the end. Now we can, you follow that rhythm. We see it's the same thing over and over and over again. The car loan happens, and the car loan is really interesting because it's been a 0% car loan, and we've been paying it for 44 months. So if we do the math, $500 a month for 44 months equals $22,000. So that car is actually almost paid off. There's only $2,000 left on the car. So while you've been paying off all your other debt, that $500 a month that was your car loan was 100% principal, and it's been paying it off. So now we got 46 months, and the car loan's gone. What do you do when you pay off your car loan? What do you do when you pay off your car loan?
Save for another car.
Well, you at least save 1 or 2 months because you know the minute that you pay off your car loan, it's going to break down, right? You know that's planned obsolescence, so to speak. So take a moment, pause, and say, you know what? We're going to build up our emergency cushion a little bit. And so you might want to do that. But now you have $1,180 of money that you don't, your $300 that we started with has turned into $1,180. We have $1,180 every month that we don't need to live on. Because remember, we started with $300 and then we started collecting all of those minimum payments. We were paying those to the bank. We've collected those, and now it's $1,180 that you get to spend any way that you want as you move forward because you have no consumer debt. You're not giving it away. Now again, we're 46 months out. It's taken some time to get here, but we certainly are ready for a little bit more, right? And so maybe you take a family trip. Maybe you buy something special for Reb. Maybe the car does need an upgrade. Well, now you can say, oh, well, with $1,180 of money that I don't need to live on, and that's not magic money. It didn't come from anyone. It was money that you were giving away to financial institutions that you've recaptured 1 month at a time. So if you need a new car, maybe you need a new car. Okay, $7,000. Oh, I just got to wait 6 months to go do that. Maybe we're going to go on a vacation or do a family trip. Well, it takes 6 months to plan that in our family, so that's okay. We can do that. Now we're going to move on. Once you've done that, and it's again a big deal. You've been at it for 4.5 years. It's a big deal to really pause and say, well, what was the thing that we were going to do? What's the purpose when we got rid of all of our consumer debt? What are we going to do? And so you might have been thinking about that already. Maybe when you started the whole journey, you said, once we get rid of all of our debt, this is what we're going to do, family, or this is what we're going to do, Rebecca, to your spouse, or maybe you're just making a promise to yourself. So that's what we got set. We got our emergency cushion at, again, around $1,000, maybe $2,000, whatever it is. It's still not fully funded. And a fully funded emergency cushion simply means 3 to 6 months worth of expenses in a bank account that is designed to just accommodate those big ticket items that might happen. You don't have any consumer debt. I like to call this my self-funded line of credit. This is where you get a little more latitude. When you see something and you're like, you know what, we want to upgrade some windows, or we want to upgrade something in the house. Well, we can get started. We can continue to save because we got $1,180 that we're not living on, but we can go and start on that. And so, you know, again, if I was something in our emergency cushion that we can't forecast, then we can add it in. And after 10 months, we get $11,000 in the bank. So if I do the math here and I go, all right, 46 months to get rid of all of our consumer debt. 16 months, in that 16 months, we went for a really good trip, or maybe we bought a new car, we spent some money doing that. And then we also got a fully funded, we got $11,000 sitting in a bank account that is really not used for anything. It's my self-funded line of credit. Then we're 62 months out. After 5 years, all of our consumer debt, we're kind of breathing a big sigh of relief. And again, oops, I hit the wrong button. There we go. 62 months. And now we're going to say, okay, where's the mortgage at? Maybe, and again, this is the time, once you have it, you may say, we want to take that $1,180. Maybe I want to start, you know, saving for the kids' education because I put that on hold while we were doing that. Maybe you want to start investing that money, and you can take that money. Today, what we're going to do is we're going to actually use it and apply it to the mortgage. So mortgage has dropped from $200,000 to $177,000 in the first 5 years. Not very far, right? It's a little discouraging that way. But we do know that somewhere in this 62 months, we had the ability to renew the mortgage. And when you renew the mortgage, if you're thinking and planning ahead, you can say, well, I want the ability to be able to double my payment. In this case, that's what would happen. $1,180, we're going to add that to the $1,000, and we're going to make it $2,180. $2,180 for 90 months. The total amount, all $244,000, gets paid off in 12.7 years. And the reminder here for all of us is we started with $300, and we consistently, strategically, diligently applied $300 to the money we were already spending, and we paid off the debt in 12.7 years, so almost 13 years, on $300. Anybody excited about that? I'm excited about that. That gets me excited every time that I do that, because that's the power of the snowball. And recognizing that I didn't come up with a whole lot of money. I didn't come up with money. Maybe I had to sacrifice my Starbucks. Maybe I had to change my living a little bit to be able to come up with that $300. But the reality was, hey, in 12.7 years, now what does my financial picture look like? Well, I got $2,180 that I don't need to live on, right? And what do I want to do with that? Maybe I want to invest more into real estate. Maybe I want to do something like that. Now I've got $2,180 to be able to do that. So that's a bit the power of the snowball. Anybody excited about that? Yeah, you're good? Okay, good. Because this, to me, is just, it's almost like magic. You know, every time I do it, I think, it's almost like magic. I can't believe, I got to go back and redo it. But the reality is it's time to celebrate and go, what are we going to do with that?